What is up, everybody? I'm having a great day. Hope you are too. Today I'm going to tell you a story about a massive Grail collection piece. My collection does indeed still exist. This story was first shared on the Cardboard Hands podcast relatively recently with Retrospects in the old card shop. Retro's power went out in the first 30 minutes. However, Josh and I had a great conversation nonetheless. I'm going to take you back in time to about 2023. There was a former seller, or a former collector, who turned seller after rediscovering his old collection, and I mean pretty serious stuff. One of the items this collector had was an uncut white border Jungle test print sheet. So all the non-holo rares from Jungle with white borders on a sheet. This individual somehow contacted a media or print group with the proper equipment to get this sheet cut up into individual cards. This was all pretty well documented, and the cards went off to be graded at CGC prior to them being auctioned off on various consignment services. I was actually speaking with that seller individually to try to work out a deal because I knew I wanted one of these Scythers. We're trying really hard not to say and and you know. I realize those are my 4 phrases that I say often. Maybe you guys can keep count. If I do slip up and say those a bunch, keep a count down below. I was speaking with the individual and we were talking about a deal, but I figured as soon as he said that he was sending some copies off to auction, I'd be able to get a better price. So I waited it out, and I did end up securing one of the Scythers from his sheet for a pretty reasonable price. About a year later, so early 2024, I got that card cross-graded to PSA. The reason I thought to do this is because I think back in 2022, let's say, there was this Pidgeot card that showed up in the PSA pop report. And if you're a giant nerd like I am, maybe you do this too, where you just kind of keep track of interesting cards that get graded by PSA or XYZ company. One of those cards was a really beat up, ugly Pidgeot with dirt all over it, but it had white borders and rounded corners. Never saw that card show up in public. It was never transacted to my knowledge in a public way. I never heard anything else about that card other than me and a couple other nerds found it in the pop report. So that is what kind of gave me the idea to get this card graded at PSA. There's one. So I did that. Once I got that card graded by PSA, I actually listed it on my eBay as kind of like a show and tell. Hey, look at this cool card I own. Neat. Look at me. I don't use Instagram, so sometimes I do that and I list cards for preposterous prices. Sometimes that triggers people and they send me nasty messages. Other times they don't. On this occasion, I got a message on that listing. I think I put my square cut Scyther up for 15 grand or 14 grand. It might still be up now. I need to delist that. Anyway, I got a message saying, cool card, I have one too. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy is a Jungle Scyther. That's neat. I'm a fan of Scyther. Maybe we can chat about it, but this guy's mistaken if he thinks he has the same card as me. Well, he ended up sending me some photos, and he did have the same card as me. But there was something interesting about it. It had rounded corners, and it was super dirty in a PSA slab. Just like the Pidgeot that I had recognized years ago. And this individual said that, yeah, those cards came from him because way back in the day, his dad somehow was affiliated with Wizards of the Coast or the printing company thereof. I know that Wizards of the Coast employees sometimes got reimbursed as part of their compensation package, some kind of point system where they could trade in points for trading card products, like uncut sheets, sometimes maybe, or maybe they got this sheet otherwise. I don't know. I've heard of that happening. But I do know that employees sometimes were incentivized with booster boxes, packs, things of that nature. One way or another, this individual's father brought home a white border test print sheet and slapped it in the living room floor and allowed his son and the neighborhood kids at it with safety scissors. And they just cherished and enjoyed those cards through the remainder of their childhood. One thing led to another. Those then children got them graded and the cards exist. That's the only other known white border test print sheet. And I've chatted with a few premier collectors like Rusty, TCA Gaming, who shared with me that he owns perhaps a white border fossil sheet and maybe some promo sheets, or he at least knew of some white border promo sheets existing. Rusty, if you're watching this video, if you could verify that. Hopefully I'm remembering our conversation correctly. It was a year or two ago at this point. But, so I knew that these white border sheets existed, but Rusty told me that he didn't own a jungle sheet and he didn't exactly know of any others that existed at that time either. That could have changed between then and now. As it stands, that collector and I had chatted and stayed in touch for several months, and he and I were trying to work out a deal, and he was a little apprehensive to let it go, understand, because this was part of his childhood and he did have a lot of memories associated with that. And I get it. I have never sold a card from my childhood either. Though he reached out to me about a month ago saying that he was beginning the stages of buying a house and could use the extra funds. And so I made him an offer. He thought about it for a day or two, accepted my offer. Now I own the card, and here they are. This is the only known union between a test print from each of the two known sheets, to my knowledge. If you're a collector who owns a white border test print from both the square cut sheet and the safety scissors sheet, let me know in the comments down below, but I believe I'm the only person to have done this so far. And that's not like, hey, look at me, cool guy stuff, but it's just historically significant and interesting, and I love that. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to the actual history of this trading card game and others, and I enjoy it so much. That type of discovery or like emergent items is so fascinating and enjoyable to me, and these Scythers are not leaving my possession anytime soon. I wanted to share this story just as partly a catalog to document the fact that I own these cards. This is where they're at in my possession. But also I thought that this kind of collector story time video might be entertaining for you. So if you did find this entertaining, comment down below and let me know that you'd like to see more of these, because I do own a couple of a decent amount actually now of like relatively historically significant items. And I think that either the story of where they came from or the story of how I acquired them could be pretty entertaining. So if that's something you're interested in, comment down below. I'm attempting to revive this channel. I record videos often, they just don't ever seemingly make it up onto the channel. So with that said, I appreciate all of your time. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.